And we are back for what is it, episode 8 now we're doing of Alchemists.
That's right.
Episode 8. We took a couple weeks off. I am your host, Mr. Alchemistic. How about you can call me B, and I am joined by my gracious co-host here, Mr. Romero Vingian, aka Mr. Quantum Alex Romero. And we are back for this election special.
That's
You
right.
guys hyped up about the election like we
Woo!
are?
We're pumped.
Ready
Yeah.
for some electile dysfunction?
Oh, good. Love it.
Oh man. So to get us started, I am wearing my Dodger hat here. Go Dodgers. They're in the World Series against the Yankees up 2-0 as of this recording. And been watching a lot of baseball since I've been out here in Georgia. A lot of football too. And one of the things I noticed, I've lived in a liberal strongholds in California, Los Angeles, my entire life. So elections, um, like the election commercials and promotion of the election are a lot different out here. I've noticed, and you see it in the television. It's Georgia is a big time battleground state. It is a swing state. It tends to go one way or the other. It's one of the ones that's always hotly contested over in every election because it tends to swing back and forth. It's a purple state. And I'll tell you, man, I am fucking tired of election commercials
I can imagine.
because, man, every single commercial break, there's a Kamala commercial, and then right after it, there's a Trump commercial, and um, it really kind of highlights the polarization of our nation when you watch these commercials and how they're geared towards their certain side. The Trump commercial is primarily about, oh, Kamala wants to give transgender uh, inmates uh, sex change surgeries and make you pay
Right.
for it.
Right.
And then the Kamala commercial is all about, oh, Trump is a big billionaire and he's going to help his billionaire buddies and he forgot about you, the middleman. And it's all sensationalism, obviously, but it's like it's really telling. You get a good idea of who they're gearing their message towards in the polarized sections of these two opposite ideologies. It's kind of in a nutshell shows you what this election is all about is polarizing people.
It's interesting because um although I have seen the commercials, I couldn't bring myself to listening to them. So like I briefly recall somehow somewhere reading about, oh, Kamala wants to give all the inmates, sex changes. I'm sorry, like it's a little funny, but I really, because I that's remember like reading about them, like, oh, that's I remember reading that was funny, but then I don't remember anything from the Kamala camp. And honestly, I'm not even really paying attention to what either side is saying. We both know that it's the truth anyway, or some very of the truth. Ultimately, it really comes down to people looking at what actually has been happening in IRL, in real life. We look at the things that we say, and then we look at the things that we do, and the things that we say. For most of us, we try and line up the things that we do with the things that we say, but when it comes to politics, it almost never aligns. And so what I have to do at this point is to really sit there and look at, but all right, well, let's just look at the how the last 4 years of our lives have gone, and what were the promises that were made then, and what how we're living now, and how was the administration carrying out their duties, their civic duties before this administration, which it just so happens that the previous administration happened to have been a Trump administration. And we don't have to get into like all the things that happened then. I just know that when that happened, right? When we had the Trump administration, I'm not saying I'm for either one of the parties. I can just tell you from my perspective as a citizen of this country that when Trump entered office, 8 years ago, uh, for the first time in what had felt like a really long time, at least since I was a child, it felt like things were actually happening in our government. Things got shut down, things got moved around. It wasn't necessarily like the greatest for a lot of people. Some people were not excited about these changes, but the changes that came were changes that needed to happen over a long period of time. And so I feel like we're in this boiling point right now where like you're hearing all this noise and they're just distractions from the real impact that's happening. It's looking around what's happening in your reality. What is the media been saying? What has our leaders been telling us that they wanted to do? And then what did our leadership actually do? What did we get involved with that helped out our people? And what did we get involved with that didn't help out our people? Like these are questions that the public has to ask themselves. I'm not here to answer those questions. That's not my intention here. My intention here is to get you, listener, to ask yourselves these questions so you could figure out, what is the reality of the situation in your life. And we have had a few weeks of a break. B and I have been kind of busy. He's been in Georgia, out there exploring the wilderness, connecting with Mother Nature.
I've been traveling a lot. Well, not a lot, but just kind of searching, like exploring the area. There's a lot of like beautiful nature parks around here, and then my mother and I took a little couple day trip. We went to the coast to Savannah, Georgia, spent a day there and saw the sights, and it's beautiful there. It's amazing. And then went a little bit north to Charleston, South Carolina, which I fell in love with that city, man. It is really, really cool. A lot of cool sights. Her and I saw the sunrise over Fort Sumter, which was the site of the beginning of the Civil War. So there's a lot of history there, and just beautiful houses and beautiful women. Beautiful
Oh,
women in South Carolina, man. I was kind of blown away. The place where we were at watching over Fort Sumter, it's called the Battery, and all these beautiful houses right on the coast, three-story, like they're all kind of squished in together, but these beautiful three-story houses. If you guys are following me on Instagram, I posted a video of it, and then just beautiful women walking everywhere. It was just like, where am I? It was just, is this California?
this ain't
Um,
California.
yeah, is this California? It's a beautiful place, and I really fell in love with it. But yeah, so to your point about the Trump administration, a lot of people hated on Trump, and you know, I'm not a big fan of the guy myself. I've never really trusted him. I will admit that I was very happy that he beat Hillary Clinton
Yeah.
back in 2016. I was very, very pleased with that. And because I'm not a liberal, even though I lived in LA my whole life, I don't really identify with either of these ideologies. I feel like it's kind of an ideological box that they try to stick you in. You're either one or the other, and then they try to get you to
Hmm.
fight each other, and it's just a
Yep.
whole fucking mess of bullshit. And the one thing I can say about Trump's administration, as much as of the social stuff that I didn't like, which is mostly media driven, and he doesn't really shy away from battles. He likes to stir the pot, and he's a very polarizing figure. But his administration got shit done. Like the things he said he was going to do, he actually did it, and that was the thing that you could kind of differentiate him from other politicians. Politicians are all about promises and bullshit and things that they don't intend to follow through on, which is I think kind of highlighted Kamala's whole campaign is just a bunch of bullshit that she can't follow through on. It just sounds good, right? These politicians say a bunch of shit to the common man who doesn't understand how the government works. Oh, I'm going to cut your taxes and da, 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 and your life's going to be great. And I got very disillusioned with politics at a young age. I was I wasn't quite voting age for the Gore and Bush election in 2000. I was 17 years old, almost 18. I turned 18 in the year 2000, and I wasn't quite old enough yet to vote. And I was just looking at, okay, I'm going to be an adult and do this whole voting thing. And if you guys remember, that 2000 election was decided on the hanging chads in Florida.
That's right.
So
Where I was at. Yeah.
yeah, the hanging chads, and
King
who was
said,
the governor of Florida at the time?
Dick
Well,
Cheney.
Jeb Bush. Jeb Bush just so happened to be the governor of Florida and helped his brother win that election, and it was very shady. There's a lot of controversy over that election and the result of George W. Bush, and then his 8 year administration spoke for itself. With all the wars they got us into, the Afghanistan, obviously 9/11, and the Iraq War, which both wars were this quagmire of bullshit that we were stuck in for more than his term, you know. And then 2008, Barack Obama came along running on hope and change. And I fell for the okie doke, and I was really excited about Obama. And because I was just disenfranchised with the Republican Party, I didn't want anything to do with the right wing. I felt like they were war hawks and they were awful. And I was really hopeful for Barack Obama. And then he came in and he bombed more people than anyone in history. Mind you, not underneath an official war, but Barack Obama's administration was an extension of the Bush administration. It was just more of the same. A lot of people think that Barack was this great president, and he wasn't. He was more of the same. It was a bunch of fucking okey doke bullshit, and people remember him fondly. But that administration was very destructive, and it disillusioned me completely with politics. I don't like I said, I do not identify with either ideology. I think they're both very harmful, and I think people need to think for themselves. But the things I can say about Trump is that he did what he said he was going to do, and I, again, I'm not. I think the whole thing is an illusion. I don't trust Trump. I would like to see him win this election. People would probably hate on me for that, but I don't feel like you look at, like you said, you look at the last 4 years. What has the Biden administration done? Nothing. It's kind of been like a ghost running the ship in a lot of ways, and I feel like none of the things that he ran on have been accomplished. He actually harmfully pulled us out of Afghanistan, which is a huge embarrassment for this country. He's been fucking Weekend at Bernie's for 4 years and done nothing. Done absolutely nothing. He's been a corpse. He's been a walking corpse in the Oval Office. And I can't say that a president has ever affected my life in any way. I've never voted, and people are going to hate on me for that too. I've never voted. I've never believed in the system. I think it's corrupt. It's corrupt beyond imagination, and we kind of just accept it. Oh yeah, politics is corrupt, but there are changes that we can make. And I feel like Alex, you're involved with organizations and you're involved in work that I feel can change things. And I feel like this election is another shit show.
What's funny is I just before we jumped on this podcast, I had a hour-long conversation with this gentleman out of I think he's with the organization called the Government Blockchain Association. And so I was with this organization a couple of years back. I was invited to participate. Um, and so I went to Washington, D.C., and I sat with a bunch of bureaucrats, and I heard what they all had to say. And and I noticed there's a bunch of like people throwing ideas around in these rooms, and then nothing is getting done. It's like, and then this guy is like, so are you interested in getting more involved with the UN, with the UN's agenda and this and that? I'm like, bro, I'm like, look, I came into this organization 2 years ago just so I could kind of be a fly on the wall and hear what y'all were talking about. I'm like, but I realized really quickly, I'm like, yeah, there's some ideas that are being thrown around in these circles where, like, yeah, they're good for the masses, but for the most part they were self-serving ideas, and they were patchwork for all the current existing effery that we have. They weren't really fixing anything. They were just doing patchwork. What we need right now is complete overhaul of our entire system, and not to have it like fixed up. We don't need it. We don't need our system fixed, guys. We need our system replaced. Period. There's no fixing this. I don't know. I don't know how to tell you this. There's no fucking fixing this.
And I think that that's the daunting task that we have in our age, right? We're in our 40. I'm in my 40s. You're almost 40. We're about to
Don't tell
take the
me.
we're about to take the baton from this old generation, and I think a lot of my generation and the younger people have been disillusioned with politics and with a lot of people have fallen for the okey dokes of the far left. and all the sentiment and the sentimental talk of like I talked about the transgender surgeries, right? Like that's designed to trigger the right? Oh, she wants to you use your taxpayer money to make, but like it's also like the reason she said that was to romanticize the left. Oh, look what I'm going to do for you people, transgenders who are forgotten about, and it's all just dangling shiny
Carrot.
things.
Yep, that's
You're
right.
dangling shiny things that sound good to some people and are terrible to other people. And there's no real progress towards anything that matters, And
Mhm.
I sat and I listened to Joe Rogan's interview with Trump. I listened to the whole 3 hours. I had to break it up in pieces because um, Trump's a little hard to listen to for a long period of time. He really loves to talk about himself and his accomplishments, and it gets pretty old. But he did talk about some really important things that is lost on people because we have short attention spans because of this, right? We all have a short attention spans, and we don't. It's really easy to trigger us into these little hot button things like, oh, Trump's a racist and he's a misogynist and he's
It grabs my buddy.
but Trump talked about some really important shit and one of the things I saw on social media was like, oh, this is boring. He's talking about tariffs. And it's like, yeah, that's actually like really important stuff. Like
It is important. Yep.
so, some of his ideas with tariffs, Joe Rogan talked about, replacing the income tax with tariffs.
Hmm.
And what we could do, what the tariffs do is, yeah, it passes on the cost to the consumer to you to consume goods from another country, right? But what it
Yep.
can help do is rebuild our manufacturing base here, home, where we've lost all these manufacturing jobs. All these manufacturing jobs have gone overseas because it's cheaper to pay some kid 10 cents to make your fucking
Yeah.
cell phone in China than it is to actually pay an American worker, which is another problem too, is the unions have driven the cost of American labor up to where it's not it doesn't make
Productive.
any financial sense to produce here. So there's a
Hmm.
lot of problems with that, but like what the tariffs can do is drive the cost of goods from other countries up. And if we and it can if they can replace the income tax, that will literally change everybody's life. So like this is the type of stuff that people, it's the minutia that gets dense and people can't fucking process it. And oh, that's
Hmm.
boring. It's easier to fucking to
Yeah.
focus on, oh, Trump's a racist and I hate him,
Yeah.
and
You know
then
what? I
to
think
look
you
at
said it. I think you said it. It's not that it's boring. It's that they don't get it, and because they don't get it, they tune it out. And
and that's
and
our whole population is so undereducated. Our education system is terrible, and it's designed to make you into a machine part that they can put into the machine and just slide you in, and you're a fucking worker now. And our that's another thing that needs to be overhauled is our education system because it's just completely it's like a prison for our children. You
yeah,
make a child go sit for fucking 6 or 7 hours at a desk and fucking uh, just get indoctrinated with bullshit. And so
right.
that's one of the things we're here for, right? As the quantum alchemists, we're here because we see the need for change and we're ready to take on the mantle of trying to empower others to understand like yes, it's a huge task, right? It's the reason why it keeps getting kicked at the can keeps getting kicked down the road to the next generation,
Yep.
and it becomes harder and harder and harder to make real change. But we have to face these challenges. We have to willingly step up and be like, you know what, we need to one educate people, two give people hope that it's possible, right? And that's one of the problems with our political system is people see it as like everybody knows politics is corrupt. Everybody
And
does. Like even the
hopeless.
people who are hardcore leftists or hardcore Trumpers, you all know, you all know that this shit is fucking corrupt. You live in California, you look at Gavin Newsom, our governor, he stole our money for this fucking $1 billion highway or $1 billion super train or whatever. It was supposed to go from San Francisco to LA. Billions and billions and billions of dollars of our taxpayers' money got taken for this project to make this a high-speed train from LA to San Francisco. And they spent billions of dollars and made like a mile of track, right? And then they abandoned the project. So where did all that fucking money go? It went to Gavin Newsom's buddies' pockets. These government contracts that are so lucrative. They take this money from us and they just give it away. They fucking launder it and they give it to Ukraine and then launder money through Ukraine. That's what they're doing. These are like people are fucking criminals, right? The whole system is full of criminals. And then they speak this flowery language to get elected to you people. They dingle these shiny little things. They make these promises that they can never keep and they don't intend on keeping just to get in office, and then they get in charge of your money, and then they start giving it out to all their buddies and they launder it, and then they become rich like Nancy Pelosi, who made fucking millions of dollars on the stock market doing fucking insider trading, and none of these people are ever held accountable. And it's high time
Preach,
we hold these people accountable, right?
preach.
People, we have the power, people have the power, and we've given it away. We've given away our power and been content to just sit back and take our bread and circus and just be distracted by our phones and our entertainment and our getting fat on bad food that kills us.
Mhm.
It's like this fucking snowball effect of garbage in our society, in our culture, and we need a cultural shift, and we need people willing to see the problems and be like, you know what, I'm nobody. I don't have any influence or power or money or any of that shit, but I want to make a change. And if enough of us do that, we can. That's because the power is with the people. And as long as they keep giving it away, we're just fucking shoveling away our power to people who are corrupt. And we just throw our hands up. Well, what am I gonna do? I'm just a fucking Joe. Like it's like stand up, like fucking we got to do something. Like make something in your community happen. Like it's we're doing this podcast. We reach a couple dozen people, but we're still doing it. It doesn't. I don't get. Oh no, this episode only had 20 views. I guess we should pack it in. Like no,
That's it. No more.
we're still making episodes. We still know what we're doing behind the scenes. We're Alex is connecting to people who can make things happen. He's a guy that can make things happen. He has a system that he's creating that can make change. Like it's just about putting one step in front of the other, like right, and allowing the divine
Yeah.
to orchestrate this plan. We know that we've been empowered with this knowledge and with this belief in ourselves and in what we're doing and the work that we're doing. And we know at some point it's all going to manifest, right? As long as we have our intention and our heart pure, we've talked about this in past episodes, we're moving one foot in front of the other. It may be a slow process, it may be a slog,
Yeah.
but the
The
point is
hard part,
our intention is to do it.
yeah. I would say the hard part is maintaining course even when you don't see the immediate results, right? Because a lot of us, what happens is we start heading a direction and then we don't see the immediate results and then we get discouraged. I've been in this path now like 7 years, going on next year will be the eighth year. So yeah, 7 years this year. And I'll tell you, like many times I've been discouraged, like, oh, I'm just gonna like give it all up. Because even my own family asked me, hey, what are you gonna do if it doesn't work? What's plan B? And I told them like plan B is make plan A work.
Mm.
That is my plan B. And it's like, well, what if it does? It's like there is no what if it doesn't. Like I don't have a choice. Like I really like if this doesn't work, then my life hangs on this not working, and that's it. Then my life just sucks because it didn't work. But but that's not what my intention is. I'm doing this because I know it's going to work, and that's why I'm putting my life force into it. See, other people are like, well, what if it doesn't work? Well, with that mentality, if it was you doing it, it wouldn't work. But because it's me, I'm gonna make it work. You know what I mean? Because that's why God gave me these plans. God gave me this understanding. He didn't give me this understanding to get this far just for me to fucking quit.
No, man, you gotta burn the boats. You gotta burn the boats and say that I'm
Burn
gonna
the
do
boat.
this and willingly make the sacrifices. And I think that's where a lot of us get caught up is we're not willing to make the sacrifices. We're not willing to give up certain things. And this goes for anything in our life, with whether it be dieting or changing an addiction or a
Um,
habit or anything, is like not being willing to make the sacrifice to do what you got to do, what you know in your heart is your heart's calling you to do something. And we let these obstacles come in and detour us. And no, you got to burn the fucking boats and say, I'm doing this. And I will not take no for an answer from the universe. And that's the universe falls in love with a stubborn heart. and we are stubborn as fuck. We are stubborn as donkeys over here, and I'm not gonna quit. What else do we have to do? This is our life. This is our, and this is where we get lost. Is people think we have this infinite time, or like that it'll just change itself, or let somebody else do it, or it's like, no, this is our life. What else do we have to do than to make positive change and to want to give a better world to the people that come after us. And for far too long, our ancestors of the recent past, whether it be our grandparents, our parents, or the people before them, we were talking about the reefer madness stuff a few episodes ago, and if the people from that time had just looked a little bit more scrutinizingly at the tycoons who perpetrating this fucking scam on the people, we would have a much different world if people had looked at reefer madness and been like, nah, wait a minute, the timber tycoon doesn't want hemp to come in and take his paper. There's an okey doke happening every fucking day from these people. The people who run this world are dangling carrots and fucking shiny things, and doing magic tricks to capture your imagination and your energy, and to deter it so that they can keep their power. And it's like, I think enough people now understand what we're up against. And the key is not to look at the monolith and be like, well, that we can never beat this giant thing. The key is to be like, to walk into the cave with a sword and be like, I'm gonna slay this fucking dragon or I'm gonna die. That's what we
That's
have to
right.
do.
That's
We're
right.
we're
Thousand
gonna slay
percent.
we're gonna slay this fucking dragon or we're gonna die. And at least we died doing something beneficial. And that's the courage you have to have, is like, know that we're gonna fight a dragon,
Yeah.
but be
You
like,
know, it's
nah,
funny.
motherfucker, I'm the dragon slayer. I'm gonna kill this fucking dragon. And if he kills me, then at least I died doing something noble.
I
And
think I said this in one of the previous episodes, which was it's better to learn to survive in the jungle than to just exist in a zoo. And for me, like this is us learning to survive in the jungle, because us just conforming and be like, oh, we can't slay this monolith. That's us just existing in the jungle. I'm
let's
sorry, that's us existing in the zoo.
just throwing our hands up. Oh well, I guess we're just gonna be slaves. Like, no.
Nope,
Like,
I refuse.
people in the past that have made significant change have put their foot down and be like, no, we're not accepting this anymore. The only people that can ever change the world are the people who are crazy enough to try, right? Like, it's we're never going to change the world unless we put our foot down and say, no, we're going to try to change this place. We're going to try to make it better. We're going to try to bring heaven to earth. Otherwise, the devil wins, right? It's
Right.
like,
And we
are we
can't
just
let
going to
that
be
happen.
are we just going to be like, oh, I guess the devil's going to win? Like, no,
Well,
the
well, first
devil.
of all, we know that that can't happen because the books are the all history, all prophecies already said the light overcomes the darkness every single time. So it's just us living out that reality. And if we are going to live out this reality, we need to understand in our heads and in our bodies and our spirits that the light already has one. We just have to live it out. And that means we have to live in faith, knowing that the light already has one.
Well, and just look at the nature of light, right? You turn a light on and the darkness flees. It's just, look at that metaphor. It applies to the shadow as well. And the shadow, I'll tell you right now, the shadow is just dying to be illuminated. That's it wants to reconnect with the light. It just is afraid to. It's that fear. The opposite of love isn't hate, it's fear. And hate is born from fear. And
That's right.
that's something that, going back to the election, is why these people on each side have been so polarized, is they fear the other side. They fear the people on the right, fear the transgenders because they don't understand them. The people on the left fear the right. They fear it. They fear the other people that they see as different as them. And if you really look at our hearts and look in someone else's eyes, you see that they're like you. They're just like you. We're all just like each other. If you look at George Carlin was talking about
Oh,
this. Did you lose me?
B.
No, you're back. George Carlin
If,
talking
if you
about this.
look if you look in someone's eyes and then what?
Oh no, I was talking about if you look at someone else in the eyes, you see their common humanity, and you can see yourself. if you look deep enough. And George Carlin was talking about this in an interview. He's because they were talking about his cynicism about people and society, and he said, I love people. I don't hate people. When you interact with somebody on person to person basis, you look in their eyes, you can see God or the universe in their eyes. It's when they group together, when they clot, right? When people clot together in these ideologies, and
But it's
they get together in groups, it's when you lose the individual. And I think the key is striking that balance, right? Is maintaining the individuality of the self, of the I, but also understanding that as a whole, we're all the same in a lot of ways. We all want the same things. We want to live our life in peace. We want to love the people we love. We want to do the things we want to do, and we want to live in peace and have a world that our families can live in safely. And that's pretty much it. Like we just want our needs met, and we want to live in a peaceful, productive life. Nobody wants to live in degradation. If you ask anybody, I don't think anyone's gonna say, "Yeah, I want to live on the street."
yeah,
I don't think any of those little kids in Africa that are chiseling rocks to make money would say, "Yeah, I want to chisel rocks for the rest of my life." Like, no,
right.
they want food. They want to live in prosperity, and we have more than enough resources in this world to provide for everybody. And it's the problem is that the resources have been hoarded in a very select few, right? And we know who these people are, and they're the ones who have mystified the masses for generations and generations, thousands of years. This shit goes back. The powerful has subdued the masses with fucking mystified them with bullshit. And it's high time that we make the shift, and the shift is coming, right? We've talked about this. We feel it. We all know there's a shift coming. The light is about to win, and it's just about aligning yourself with the light and the love, and understanding that your neighbor may believe different things, but ultimately your neighbor is yourself. And that's the heart of
Right,
Christ teaching as well, is love your neighbor as yourself, because your neighbor is yourself, and your neighbor is the
right.
piece of God, and so are you. And this is the things that, when you get deep into mysticism and you alchemy, you understand this, and it's a realization that comes from the heart. And that's kind of what we've come to, in our lives, is like we understand, right? We've come to a level of understanding about ourselves and our place in this world, and what we can do if we're all aligned in the heart, from the heart space, and not in the mind space. Is like stop
Yeah,
getting caught in these ideological traps of the mind that separates us, right? We're separated by these ideological boxes that, the election always highlights this, and creates electile dysfunction every 4 years. And it's high time we looked at our neighbors, no matter if they're a liberal or a Trumper or whoever they are, and just look at them with love and know that they're another piece of you. And it's like this little fractal up here that I've created. These fractals, these things create I've created these things out of geometric principles that underlie reality, and really get you to understand that we're all part of this. We're all just a part of this energy field that is God. And it's coming to a time in the cycle where the veil is going to be lifted, and we just are here to kind of help you guys see through that veil, and come to that oneness that is going to be the realization of the next cycle. We're running out of time here, so we'll get to a part two. But really take to heart what we're talking about, you guys, and it's really about coming to the moment, coming to your heart out of your mind, come down to your heart, and understand that the ego self is an illusion, and this is just an experience. We're all a piece of each other, and that's the realization, I think, that can change the world. So we'll be back with part two, and we'll keep going with this election stuff.
You tired of these lo-fi brands that use sweatshop labor that everybody wears? You looking for a t-shirt brand that's gonna set you apart from all the normies? Well, it's time to ascend to another level of style with Alchemystic Apparel. Everyone in the fifth dimension is talking about it. Christ himself has his own shirt. He's the Lion of Judah. The devil himself wants to get in on the action, but he can't have one. You know why? Because I took his head and I put it on a shirt. I know what you're thinking. Mr. Alchemistic, I'm not a devastatingly handsome middle-aged man. I don't know if Alchemistic Apparel is for me. Don't be delulu like Lulu. Alchemistic Apparel is for everybody. Get lucky with the four-leaf friends. Get Egyptian with Osiris. Got a bunch of haters? Pull a death card on them. Your mom is gonna love Mystic Pyramid. Heck, even dogs love Alchemistic Apparel. It's time to step out of three-dimensional clothing and step in to Alchemistic Apparel. The link is in my bio.
And we are back for part two of Electile Dysfunction. Your host, B and Alex. So, in the first part, we're talking about the election. And I said something a lot of my friends would probably hate is that I hope Trump wins. Um,
Thanks.
yeah, but I don't really care. If you're one of those people that uh, will like lose friends over elections, like
I mean,
go ahead.
I'll just let's be honest, bro. Like, you can say that you want Trump to win. It doesn't matter who you want to win. You're gonna have definitely people that are gonna hate you on one side or the other. It doesn't matter. So who the hell cares?
But I kind of want to go in a little bit on why I want to see him win.
Okay.
Mostly because, um, you know, I come from California and our politicians are unredeemably corrupt and they're all liberals. And one of the things living through COVID in Los Angeles is you saw how authoritarian the liberals are. There's a lot of really stupid shit that happened over COVID, and it was just unnecessary, and it caused a lot of disruption in businesses, and we lost a lot of great restaurants, we lost a lot of great businesses, and
Yep.
California in general is just a horrible place to try to do business. And there's just I've seen the destructive nature of the far left liberal policies, and not that I'm a huge conservative. Like I said, I'm not either one of these ideologies, but I feel like lost in the media shuffle of demonizing Trump is like Trump is a social liberal. He may be a fiscal conservative, which means his economic policies are conservative, but he himself is not conservative. I feel like he's more in the middle. And, I feel like his first administration was doing a lot of great things economically for the country. The whole social aspect got kind of overshadowed and clouded people's perceptions of what his administration was really doing. And then the COVID thing came along and they used that as a huge obstacle for him to get reelected. And yeah, I feel like Trump, I don't particularly like him personally. I don't really trust him, but for as far as Kamala Harris goes, I don't think that she's fit. And I don't think she was even like got 1% of the vote when she was running in the first place. She's just very unpopular and just not the type of person I feel should be in that position. Not that like I said, the president has never affected me one way or the other. But if I was had to pick somebody, I would definitely say I hope Trump wins. And it is what it is, and people can hate on that. But I look at like the strange bedfellows, and one thing that I talked about in the first part was I was very disenfranchised with the Republicans during the Bush administration because they took us into these wars, and almost to a T, like all these war hawk Republicans who were involved in the Bush administration are all coming out in favor of Kamala. People like John Bolton and General Kelly and like these people who served for a time in Trump's administration and then he got rid of them. But I am
Well,
a
we go.
100%. I am 100% against the Warhawk Republicans and anybody they want to throw their hat in for. I am against. So yeah, I
Before
don't
you go too
trust.
much into that, before you go too much into that tangent, though, people forget that even though Trump is running as a Republican, and he is a Republican, he hasn't always been a Republican. In fact, he was a Democrat for a long time. And so we go back to this. We talked about this in one of our previous episodes where we talked about how, and we'll get into the next part of the segment here pretty shortly, but we were talking about how the energies of things have shifted, how things have been skewed to a point where what was left was what was once left is now right, and what was right is now left. It's like it's like everything is being polarized, right? Everything we talked about this. We
Yeah,
did the polarization of things, and then we talk about the polar shift.
flippy
Okay.
flip. Yeah, like the liberals used to be all about free speech and everything, and then we saw during COVID they were restricting speech. Like a lot of the liberal run corporations that control communication, the social media sites and whatnot, were my podcast got taken off of YouTube, right? Like I was silenced. My podcast got silenced during COVID. And this was happening to a lot of people who were just trying to get the truth out there. They're just trying to get more information out there for at a time when information was being stifled. And then you look at the a lot of the liberals now, they're all about silencing people and canceling people. And if you don't think like me, you're the devil and you're evil and you're a Nazi. And it's just like a lot of hyperbole, a lot of like sensationalism, and I think that's what's been done to um, a lot of people. And now it's like it's almost contrarian to be a Republican or a conservative. A lot of people, a lot of the rebels or whatever, they were talking about this in the Joe Rogan podcast. How now the rebels are the Republicans, which is crazy because of this authoritarian tilt that the left has become and I
So not to
just
be a
don't.
Republican means you're a rebel.
That's what kind of what it is at this point because you get demonized as a Nazi or a white supremacist or a misogynist if you say that you want like a lot of my friends would probably fucking disown me for saying I want Trump to win, but I just don't see. I'm just tired of division, which, a lot of people are, well, Trump's the biggest divider. Yeah, he's pretty polarizing, but like just what I've seen from the left over the past, 8 years since Trump was originally elected has been a very authoritarian and if you don't think like me, then
You're
fuck you. And it's
Yep.
just very intolerant. There's a lot of intolerance coming from the left that I don't
Yep.
like, and it kind of promotes division, which is not spiritually
Yep.
where I'm at right now. I'm more about bringing people together, and
Yep.
I don't think a Trump administration is going to do that. But I just feel like after listening to him on Rogan, he brings up a lot of like interesting points, and he's a businessman, right? And ultimately, what the United States is a giant corporation. So
Boom. The Virginia Company.
yeah, I mean, it is incorporated. The United States is a corporation, is a business. He's run business. He's run the country before. I feel like he's more suited to be in that position. I don't think Kamala's ever run anything. And she's,
Besides the law.
you look at her record as an attorney general, she was very harmful to African Americans, right? She used them as slave labor in the prison system, kept a lot of African Americans locked up for minor offenses. There's a lot of very problematic things with her. And so if I had to make a choice, I would say Trump. And people would hate me for that, but I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck what you think. I'm my own person, and that's what I think. And because I do my research, I look into these people. And I remember 4 years ago when Kamala was trying to go for the nomination before Biden was chosen. I looked at her as like, man, she's awful. She's terrible. And now she got this position by default, right? Biden stepped down and endorsed her, and all of a sudden she's the candidate. She didn't even get elected through primaries, right? She was just
Nope.
handed the nomination, and it's problematic. She's problematic. She always has been, and I don't think that she's fit for that position. I don't care how much flowery language she uses, and it's she's a bullshit artist, and she got to that position in life by sleeping her way to the top. It's very well documented how she got where she's at. So I don't think she should be there. I think they should have gone through a primary at least to find the candidate when Biden stepped down. They didn't do that. So there's a lot of reasons. But the Warhawk Republicans, to me, coming out in favor of her is a big indictment of her in general. Because I just my post traumatic PTSD from the Bush administration. I don't want any of those guys anywhere near government, and I don't listen I don't put any stock into anything they say. So if they're endorsing Kamala, then give me Trump, because I would rather have Trump than Warhawk Republicans. Because we all see what they got us into. My whole early adult years were marked with the years and years of wars we didn't have to be in, and a lot of just harmful, destructive policies that,
Yep.
um, quite frankly, we're done with that. Yeah, like we need to move past that shit. And I don't like socially what Trump brings to the table, because mostly because the media is so against him. And that's one of the things that was one of the things that Joe Rogan brought up at the very beginning of the podcast, was how before he was president, Trump went on The View, and all these women who now hate him were talking about how much they love him, and da 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 da, and like he was very respected in the liberal circles, right? Mostly because they didn't think he had a chance to beat Hillary or even get the nomination on the Republican side. And then as soon as he became the nominee and then ended up winning, I think it just sent a shockwave through the left that they've never recovered from, and it turned them into this monster of authoritarianism. And it's just, I don't like it. I don't like anything that they're bringing. I don't believe in any of the policies that they're bringing. Any of this green shit, the Green New Deal, or any of that kind of stuff. It's all suspect. Everything you look at from top to bottom on the left is very suspect, and it's corrupt. There's just corruption rife on that side of the coin, and not to
Yep.
say there's not corruption on the right. There's absolutely is. I don't, like I said before, man. I don't associate or identify as any ideology. I don't believe in ideologies. I believe in individualism. I don't. And I'm much like George Carlin. When anytime people start to clump up into groups, I always look at it with a suspect eye, because I believe in the power of the individual and the individual thought. And so much of the left is just gotcha politics, and it's not what we need at this point in time. So
Mm.
anyway, that's a long-winded way of explaining it, but that's where I'm at. I don't, and mostly it's because of the Warhawk Republicans. I don't want anything to do with these people. I don't think they should be anywhere near anything. They destroyed our country, and if they want Kamala, then I don't. 100%.
Right. Well, this leads us to our next thing, which, you know, we talked about briefly about like what it is that Trump set out some agendas in his last term. He was able to do the things that he said he was going to do. Some of them, just to name a few, would be like shutting down some of the uh, uh, government agencies that were not necessarily doing things in our greatest favor. You know, but moving forward from that, uh, there's we also know that the powers that be, if you want to call them, the Illuminati or whoever you want to call them, yeah, those guys, those people, that they always tell you what they're gonna do, right? And so I was watching YouTube. I was on my data downloads thing, because I go to YouTube and I have a lot of spiritual healers and people that I follow in the spiritual community, and I get a lot of my my like things to look for, in my daily, my weekly, my monthly type of stuff. And in that feed, I saw this woman that popped up on my feed, and it said she was talking about this book. by this guy named Ingersoll Lockwood, and the name of the book was called The Last President. And I briefly recall, maybe a couple years ago, that there was this whole thing about a book about a child named Barron Trump and how his father became the last president of the republic. And I was like, huh. And since we are in electile dysfunction season, I thought like, oh, okay, well, this is interesting that this would pop up my feed. And since he was in fact the last president, and this would be the last, probably the last chance that he'll have at running. To be honest with you, like if he doesn't win this, I don't see him running again. Um, I don't see him having a
Yeah,
chance to.
he said that if he loses, this is his last election. This is the last election, no matter what. Like if he wins, he can't run again. But yeah, he said before this is his last election.
Okay, so so that being said, like I thought that was interesting. Now I hadn't read the book, so I did the next best thing, which I know how to do, and I turned to AI and I was like, "Hey AI," I was like, "Tell me about this book." And so I got the transcripts. B and I were gonna do a little role play, going back and forth on this, and telling you, what this book had written in it. And I think it's important to look at it because, um, this is, let's just say that, first of all, let's back that up a little bit. We had another podcast. We talked about the energies that were returning back. Planetary energies that hadn't been here in a long time, and how we're reliving the same eras that as we were during the Civil War. And which one was it? B. I'm a little.
So Pluto in the 29th degree, Pluto has like 286-year cycle or something. There
Yeah,
is in
he's
the
good.
29th degree, it changes astrological signs every 200 and something years, right? Um,
Yeah,
and it was last in the 29th degree during the Revolutionary War. And then
Revolution.
um, I believe Uranus, the last time it had changed was during the Civil War. Last time it was
Yeah,
at the 29th degree, about to shift over into a new astrological sign. And then the
hmm
last time
Neptune.
Neptune was about to shift was during World War II. And
Yep.
now all three planets are in the 29th degree again at the same time. And because they
hmm
all cycled around, it just so happens to be they're all at the 29th degree again, about to shift into a new
Right.
astrological sign. And this brings a lot of change. So each individual one in the last time when we had major wars, right? And now all three of them collectively are together about to shift into a new astrological sign. And just we
Right.
were talking, it's called Astrologically Inclined. Go check out the episode if you haven't watched it. But we detailed out what we can expect. And it's really like a giant shit sandwich of astrological stuff that we
Giant
are
shit.
looking at right now. Between now and the middle of next year, I believe all these planets are going to shift into a new astrological sign.
Right.
And and it just so happens to all coincide with this election, and the stuff in Gaza, and obviously the stuff in Ukraine has been going on for a few years, but it's kind of a telltale of from the stars or from the planets, from the heavens, that things are happening, things are shifting. And
Right. So
yeah,
with that
so
with that being said, I'm sorry to cut you off. With that being said, that's the reason why when I started hearing about when this thing popped up on my feed, I'm like, oh, that's a interesting correlation. I'm like, well, maybe let's explore it even further, right? Because if if he does get reelected, and so again we go back to the energy stuff. So during those planetary shifts, a lot of major things happen. We're going into it again. I can only assume, and again these are assumptions, but whatever, we all know what happens when you make assumptions. We can only assume that these three planets coming back through are going to cause some major shifts. So I thought to myself, like, let's just say for whatever reason, like, this plays out. I'm curious to know what was written about in the book as it relates to how our lives were affected by the actions of this quote unquote so-called last president. And and then the answers I got from GPT were really fascinating. And we're gonna get into the correlations here, as far as like what the implications are of what the book says, and what the implications could be in our present day real life. But um, yeah, I don't know. Is that pretty much summarize what we're gonna get into right now?
Yeah, I think so. And so this book, and one of the things before we get into the book is like, you talked about how the powers that be like to tell us what they're going to do, and this is, we talked about predictive programming, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the movies and books and stuff have, George Orwell's 1984 and Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, and then stuff like the Terminator, or there's just a lot of predictive programming that has been infiltrated. And a lot of these, I mean, I feel like Orwell and Huxley were actually, I think they're benevolent, right? And they're benevolent artists that kind of saw the writing on the wall and were trying to warn us. But be it as it may, like, that's kind of, if you want to get into magic, right? The way to avoid karma in black magic is to tell your subject what is coming, right? It's how karma is avoided by these people who run things. It's how they've been able to maintain power and not be um and not be taken down, and avoid the karma of their actions. And this book is very um, kind of, in a lot of ways, prophetic, in that it's talking about a populist president, which, I heard about this book when Trump was first elected, because people were afraid he was going to be a dictator. But one of the things it says in the, while the book doesn't provide a detailed step-by-step account of executive orders, it describes a president whose radical policies and decisions begin to upend the established political and economic order. Here are the key themes related to how the last president's actions lead to massive change. And the first one is populist uprising. The president is portrayed as someone who has the support of the common people, especially those feeling disenfranchised by the political and financial elite. His election represents a break from traditional politics with a mandate to bring drastic reforms to the government, which is, pretty much what Trump is run on, and it kind of reflects his following as well. He's a man of the common folks, in a lot of ways, and people who are disenfranchised by the political system, which,
Right.
is pretty much what he's how he's risen to popularity.
And he's not a traditional politician either.
No. And then number two is economic chaos. One of the president's early actions leads to the devaluation of the currency, which causes financial panic among the upper classes. The economic shift undermines the power of the wealthy who are deeply embedded in the banking system. Which, uh, we're at this time, and you look at COVID and how much money they printed. They printed 40% of all money during COVID, and it has led to massive inflation over the last 4 years. And
Right.
you can't really blame that on Trump. You can try, but it's just like, it was kind of just a product of the situation. They were paying us to stay home, and they
Yeah.
printed all this money and just handed it out. And there were a lot of economists pointing to, this result, and they did it anyway. And
Right.
that's not all on Trump. That's on the establishment of, these. It wasn't just in this country either. It was in other countries. They you really want to get to conspiracy tinfoil shit, like, it was kind of by design. If you really look at, Event 201, which was a war game they did on a pandemic, literally just a couple months before the pandemic actually happened. They do these war game events, right, where they simulate a scenario, and then they have their plan in place when the scenario presents itself in real life. So they war game for it. In the Event 201, if you guys want to do some research, is something they did in November of 2019, before the pandemic hit. Not so coincidentally, in my opinion, but yeah, it was a war game exercise where they kind of set out their plan for if a pandemic ever hit. What do you know? One hit 5 months later is they're how prophetic. but this is once you really get into the conspiracies, you see that this happens time and time again, where they will game plan for something that ends up happening. And then Rahm Emanuel, Barack Obama's, I think, Secretary of State, famously said, "No, don't let any crisis go to waste." And they did not let COVID go to waste. I'll tell you that much. They implemented all kinds of shit, and they kind of shined a light on what they really want to do. If you look into the World Economic Forum and what their plans were for the future, they're using it to enact the Fourth Industrial Revolution plan, which is all this green shit, the Green New Deal, and universal basic income,
Carbon
and
tax.
carbon tax. Yes, it's all stuff that had nothing to do with COVID. You really, it's a deep dive. You got to really look into the rabbit hole if you want to find this shit out. But it's out there, and they were doing it on their website. They had a whole like comprehensive plan that they came out with in May of 2020. This whole like rabbit hole of information that they could not have come up with in 2 months. It was like really ready to go, and they tried to use COVID as a way to feng shui their plan for the future and onto us. And they're looking at stuff like the green pass, right? They're trying to get everyone to get vaccinated, and trying to shut anyone out of society that didn't get vaccinated. And it was just like an authoritarian push that they did during COVID. And this is you kind of got a sense of where they wanted to go with society. Anyway, that was a big tangent, uh, but the economic stuff. This is stuff we've been teetering on the brink of economic ruin since 2008.
That's
We
right.
had the big mortgage crisis, and they uh, they glued the economic system together, and stuck it together with chewing gum and band-aids, and kicked the can down the road, right? So they know this is coming. The
Which,
economic policies we've been living under for the last
yeah.
4 decades, since they went off the gold standard,
And
have been
B, this is this
unsustainable.
goes this goes back to like the reason why I just in the last segment said, um, we don't what we need is we don't need patchwork. We don't need to fix the system. We need to replace it because there is no fixing this, and I go back to this is what my analysis has been and what my advice has been to government officials. I'm like, look, guys, I'm like, it's really simple. You can't you cannot create value from a debt-based system. It doesn't work. The moment you try and create value from a debt-based system, it cancels itself out, which leaves you with nothing. You literally cannot do it. So all this patchwork that you're trying to do, all this effery, all you're doing is trying to void out the financial value that we're generating, and you're going to leave the people with nothing at the end of the day because the entire system was designed to extrapolate value resources from its people. So the
Hmm.
only way that you can actually help people is to replace the monetary system. It's the only fucking way.
Yeah.
And this has been what I've been telling high level government officials for a really long fucking time. But they're like, "Who the fuck are you? What are you talking about? And why are you telling me this?" Like, we hear you, but we're not listening. And it's funny because um, in this book, it kind of touches on that a little bit. And in a way, the executive orders that get executed forces a change in the monetary system. And if so this goes back to what I was trying to say about the whole energy shift was if we're ever going to have a collapse of this republic, of this system that we have, of this illusion, of this stronghold that we have of these authoritarian dictator regime that we have that's in the shadows. Um, if it's going to happen, at it's going to have to happen at a time like this,
Hmm.
where the energies are supporting it, where the ethers are supporting the change, and where the people are ready. The people have awakened enough to the effery to say, okay, I think that it doesn't like a lot of the problem. Fear comes from not knowing, right? So we go back to love and fear. So if you're not going to love something if you don't understand it,
Hmm.
right? It's almost impossible for you to love something you don't understand. But if you fear it, it's easier for you to hate it, right? So what happens is we have these people who have been conditioned to believe that the end all be all is the dollar. It's the American institution of the dollar, and that because we have a very powerful military, whatever we say is the way it goes. And maybe for a very long time it was that way. But on a global scale, we've got countries that are that are clotting up against us. We got the BRICS nations that they're coming up with their own financial system, right? So what it goes to prove is that countries around the world are banding up together saying, "Hey, we don't need those American fuckers. We don't need their money. We don't need their value system. We don't even need their fucking goods because they don't produce shit." So,
Well,
um,
this is all to say, like this, the writing has been on the wall. You can look at this book and say it's prophetic, and obviously, this guy obviously he looked far enough into the future to understand that there's going to be some kind of huge upheaval coming, and it just comes to universal consciousness. It's just something in the consciousness. It's something in the ether that we know it's coming, and the people who run things know it's coming too. That's why, the whole Illuminati motto is order out of chaos, right? They know there's going to be chaos. And this is something when you look into this conspiracy stuff, I know it's been demonized, but there's a whole lot of evidence that they knew that this was coming. You look at there's a lot of information from the early 1900s that said that they planned a lot of the things that they've been doing. It is called the Great Work of the Ages. This has been done over generations and generations of, the power has been handed down to specific bloodlines, to specific people. And they've been running this for who knows how long, and they all have a plan. And they release their plans through stuff like these books. And to kind of, just put it out, it's a form of magic. It is a form of manifestation
that's right.
to do this kind of stuff. And
And not to mention that the author of the book, by the way, which we didn't get into, but the name of the author of the book is Ingersoll Lockwood, which sounds a very Masonic name, if you ask me.
yeah, well, I mean, if you guys really want to understand what the playbook was, look into Albert Pike's letter to Giuseppe Mazzini, which was Albert Pike was a high level. He was at the top of Scottish Freemasonry. He was involved in government. He was a advisor to many to presidents, I believe Theodore Roosevelt, I think. Giuseppe Mazzini was the godfather of the modern mob. And these guys were power brokers at their time, mind you, in the shadows. They were shadow power brokers, but they were power brokers, and um, they were corresponding. And Albert Pike wrote a letter to Giuseppe Mazzini detailing three world wars that were to come in the 20th century. And he was right on with the first two world wars in his prophetic prognostication of what these wars would accomplish. And his third world war was the ideological war. The third world war was going to be an ideological war where the Christians and the atheists would destroy each other, and the Jews and the Muslims would destroy each other, and they would bring about a new ideology and a one world government out of the third world war. And if you ask me, I feel like this third world war has been going on since the Cold War. It's been an ideological battle. Communism and capitalism have been set up to destroy each other. And ultimately, what they want to do is create so much chaos that we get rid of countries and we come under
People end
one
up,
world government. And
people end up begging for it. They want us to beg for it, is what they
they
want.
want us to beg for the one world government. And, if you look spiritually, coming from a spiritual standpoint of me talking about oneness and this not, you would think that this is something I would be on board with. Oh, yeah, we need to be a one world government. But what the consolidation of power only creates a power structure that is more of a monolith, and that's what we've been slowly walking towards this. We've been tiptoeing. David Icke calls it the totalitarian tiptoe, right? And during
Okay.
COVID, they took massive leaps. They stopped tiptoeing and took massive
Yeah.
leaps to try to
Yep.
enact this. Um,
Yep. That's
so
that's when the gig was up and they realized that the spotlight was on them and that they had to make massive actions quickly. if they were going to make their goals come through.
Well,
Because
well, they tried to take a huge leap, and what it ended up doing is actually awakening a lot of people to the fact that they've been lied to, and that there is a coordinated plan. And holy shit, a lot of these conspiracy theorists were right. So it got a lot of people looking into rabbit holes. And what I want to do with my work and I know you're on the same page with this, is like we need to enlighten people who are becoming awakened, because it's very easy when you're in that state of mind to grasp onto whatever you can. And then you grasp onto the Matrix sponsored version of the truth, like the QAnon movement. Um, and then you're reading into something that isn't real either. And then your perception has been captured. It's about perception. Perception is reality. And
exactly.
we're just trying to make you guys aware of this fact. Like the reason we're talking about this book is because this is what's coming, right? This is whether or not it was written as a prophetic tome, or whether it was some kind of predictive programming or magic trick that by this author who was in the know. Like, this is what's coming, and Trump is going to be the scapegoat for all this when all this shit happens, right? Because he's going to win this election. I'm telling you guys right now. If you're on the left or right coast and you think Kamala is going to win, she's not. Trump is going to win, and then a lot of the stuff this book is talking about is going to happen. And one of the things that's going to happen is this economic crisis. Is the dollar is going to collapse. It's been teetering on a teetering house of cards for the last 2 decades, and it's only getting worse with the way we printed money. And in my opinion, the use of COVID as an excuse to print this money was just a smokescreen, right? They knew they wanted to crash the dollar, and because they want to create the chaos, and then they want to be the phoenix that rises from the ashes, right? This is
Right.
order out of chaos. This has been a
Be
plan that has been in.
be
What's that?
both the problem and the solution.
Yes, exactly. Problem, reaction, solution. The Hegelian dialectic is something that the powers that be have used for thousands of years to keep themselves in power, because they know at some point people are going to start coming against them, right? So they have to keep having these big events, this order out of this chaos, that they can be, oh, this is our plan, right? And they already have the plan already fucking, or oh, we just happen to have this plan in case we've war gamed for this. It's guys, it's so complex. They're fucking 20, 30 steps ahead of us. And when you start to
Most of us.
understand that, and come to truth, when you come to the truth, you see it, and you understand that this is a giant chess game, and they're trying to get you to play checkers, right? They're playing chess while the rest of us are playing checkers. And it's like, no, I've been doing this for 2 decades, man. I've been learning how to play chess and see their moves coming. And we're almost out of time on part 2. We'll go to part 3, but I want to get into this economic stuff because it's very important to what Alex's work is trying to do, and it's very important to understanding what's coming in our economic system, with the abolishment of the gold standard, and a lot of the precious metals, silver market specifically is something I really want to get into.
Yeah.
Very important. It's very important to educate yourself about this stuff, because this is stuff that's coming down the pipe, and it's very important to know. It's better to know, right? Knowing is half the battle. If you watch GI Joe, there's a battle coming, right? It comes with the shift. It's like at the other end of the shift is going to be great. It's going to be a new frontier for humanity, and so we don't want to like smash your hopes, right? But we're
Right.
going to
It's not
face a
doom
lot
and
of
gloom.
challenges.
It's not doom and gloom at all.
Yeah, we're going to face a lot of challenges, and we just want to prepare you for it. So we'll go more into this book and into the economic aspects after this little break.
Hey everyone, I'm the Quantum Architect, Alex Romero, and remember that you don't need to purchase anything to actually help out the cause. We are here to help you to get your life on track. If you have any policies that you want to have reviewed, your property and casualty, your life and health insurance, any of those insurance policies that you would like to have reviewed by a professional, a second set of eyes to let you know that you got the proper coverage. A lot of things have changed since COVID, so if you've got your policies before then, you may want to have a second set of eyes to review it. So there is a link on the website at the Quantum ICU, so that's qtm.icu, and it's absolutely free, doesn't cost you anything to see how you can help yourself. So do go to the website, check it out, fill out the forms, and allow us to help you, and in return, you will in fact help us accomplish our goal of building out this project. Have a wonderful day.
And we are back for part three of Electile Dysfunction. We
Woo!
left off kind of talking about this book, The Last President by Ingersoll. What's his last name?
Lockwood. Lockwood.
Lockwood. That sounds like a pseudonym. Uh,
Yeah.
so we were talking about this book and how, a lot of the times they tell us what they're going to do. And I feel like this book is kind of prophetic in that it's kind of showing us where we're going to go with the possible next Trump presidency, which it's one of the reasons I feel like I want him to win because I want this shit to just happen already. I'm tired of waiting for it because I know it's going to happen sooner or later,
Yep.
and
I feel that.
we kind of need this shift, like you said, man. We need something to happen. We need a big enema in the United States system. And if we can get somebody that's really going to make change, like Trump was making changes with his first administration, he was actually doing things um, that weren't really highlighted that were beneficial. But
Right.
we're talking about the economic chaos from the book was talking about economic chaos
Hmm.
that ensues from the executive orders. It says the novel emphasizes that the president acts quickly to use executive authority to make sweeping changes, bypassing Congress and traditional democratic processes. These executive orders lead to upheaval as they impose sudden reforms aimed at dismantling the control of the elites. While Lockwood doesn't provide specifics on each order, he implies that they are radical in nature and aimed at redistributing power and wealth. So, we talked a little bit about, the one world government plan. That's kind of the great work of the ages. That if you really look into the shadows of the conspiracy world and how the plan has kind of been set in place for generations, it's been the slow dismantling of the country-based systems. And one of the things coming is the collapse of the economic system. Um, which will cause
It's only
mass.
gonna be.
What's that?
Oh, I was yeah. There's when that happens, it's gonna lead to civil unrest, right?
Hmm. This is the decisions made by the president intensify civil unrest, particularly in major cities like New York. Angry mobs take to the streets, and the country is thrown into a state of uncertainty, with both the political system and the social order destabilized. This
Hmm.
highlights the dangerous consequences of sudden, unchecked executive power. So,
Which the same could be said about a lot of things. It's not just unchecked executive powers; it's unchecked governmental powers, right? Because if anything, it's like them trying to undo what was done, but you can only do it when you have that type of if we were to try and vote on all these changes, the votes would never go through.
well, and this
We're too divided.
part of the reason why I don't really want Kamala Harris to win because it's going to be more of the same for 4 more years, and it's just kicking the can down the road, more just talk. It's just talk, 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 and no change. And any change they try to implement is going to be contrived, right? Like we need a complete upheaval of everything, and I think I
Yeah.
see that more possible with a Trump administration, and um it may be contradictory to what we talk about, but it's like we need to be faced with this immediately. Like it's the shift, it's time for the shift. And if we got to go through a period of craziness, which is what we're going to have to either way, might as well come quick. Don't just rip the band-aid off. You got to rip the band-aid off. And
Yeah.
so anyway, so here's how the exec. So he makes an executive order in the book on. Says one of the pivotal moments involves the newly elected president issuing an executive order that significantly alters the financial system, particularly regarding the gold and silver standard. Um, So the time this was written, they were still on the gold standard. And the president's order devalues the U.S. currency by altering its backing. During that era, the U.S. was on the gold standard, meaning the paper money was backed by a fixed amount of gold. And by either shifting or expanding the use of silver, the executive order disrupts the existing monetary system. Such a drastic change causes confusion in financial markets and undermines the trust and the stability of the currency. Well, that already happened, right? Like that happened during Nixon's administration when he took the dollar off of the gold standard and went to the oil standard, which is more, I guess you could say, ambiguous. Like there's not a real and it's not directly correlated with like a barrel of oil, and it made it so that they could print money out of nothing, which is where I was talking about it, in the first part about the 40% of all money that was printed during COVID and caused massive
Yeah,
inflation. And
right.
so this just really underlies the importance of Alex's system and crypto going forward is like we need a new standard of currency.
Right.
We need to we need to go back to some kind of form of value backing the money.
What we need is
And
accountability. I think that's a way to put it. We need accountability because in the current way that we're running things, like we don't have a way to account for all of the value that's out there, right? We have a lot of technological advances, but our accounting sucks because we have what we call uh what is it called? When it's accounted for when it's in your interest, and then when it's not, when it doesn't help you, it's not accounted for, plausible deniability. The problem is that they put things on the books when it helps and they take things off the books when it doesn't help. We can't have that because then only certain people know the true accounting of things, and then they're the point of failure because there is a discrepancy in the books, right? So this is the reason why blockchain is such a big deal in modern day times, because with the blockchain we can provide accountability, we can provide transparency, and we can hold people responsible for where things have gone. And like he was saying, like B was just saying, with the all the printing of the money that we've had over the last few years because of the pandemic and stuff, yes, this caused a major devaluation of our currency, which in case you guys aren't feeling it right now, when you go to the pump and you're paying for gas and the gas is consistently rising, or when you go to the store and you try and buy eggs or milk and like you're paying almost $10 for each, like you're feeling the impacts of your currency, your purchasing power being devalued because of all the excess printing.
well, another thing I wanted to kind of get into, is the precious metals. Like gold it was getting off the gold standard was a huge shift because, before the money was backed by gold in a vault, right? Or like there was a value. Like the good thing about
Allegedly.
precious metals is that it is a physical thing that has value, right? And we've reached a point now, and something I did an episode about this on my other podcast. You still find it on Spotify. It's Dead Rabbit Society. We talked about silver, right? And something during COVID that I did was I invested in silver because I discovered through my research that there is a massive fraud in the silver market. And traditionally, silver and gold is at 17-1 ratio throughout history. But right now we're at like 86-1. Gold is like 86-1 more valuable than silver, and which is weird because silver is actually more scarce than gold. If you really like look into it, they don't actually actively look for silver. They don't actively go out and look for a silver mine. They happen to stumble upon silver when they're drilling for something else, and then they'll extract the silver. But silver is actually more scarce than gold. And what they've done, the big fraud, is JP Morgan is the largest holder of silver in the world. Like different countries put their silver stocks into the vaults of JP Morgan. And what JP Morgan has been doing for years is artificially keeping the price of silver down, because what they've done is like you can either buy like a physical silver, you can go to a fucking silver or a precious metal distributor buy actual silver, or you can buy what's called a silver certificate, which is like a stock. It's like a silver stock. And the fraud came in when they started printing more of the paper silver than there is actual silver in existence. So if you have paper silver, um, there is more paper silver in circulation than actual silver in the world. This is a huge fraud. And the reason why JP Morgan keeps the value down is because if silver was ever more desirable, more people would be going to and cashing in those silver certificates for actual physical silver. And then
And they
they,
wouldn't be able to fulfill those orders.
there'd be a rush. Exactly. There'd be a rush on silver for physical silver, and they wouldn't be able to fill the orders because they don't have a sufficient amount of silver to account for all the paper silver out there. So for years, JP Morgan and their associates have been keeping the price of silver artificially where it's at, below traditional value ratio of 17 to 1. It's now 83 to 1, right? So there's this huge fraud in the silver market. And if you're smart enough to go out and get actual silver, at some point this fraud is going to be unfurled. It could actually be something that could tank the entire currency market if it was ever revealed that silver is this valuable. And silver has a lot more applications than gold. It can be used in electronics. Um, it's
Right.
actually, yeah, there's a
Part
lot
part
of things.
part parts.
Yeah, silver is a very, very valuable metal. And it's because of this fraud, it's been kept artificially lower. So, that's a little tip for you. A little tip from me to you. Go out and get some fucking actual silver. But silver could actually become it's more of a viable alternative to gold as a standard of currency as well. Like silver is easy to make coins out of silver. It bonds better to other metals, from what I understand. So yeah, it's this is just a little fraction of the
Right.
frauds that have been perpetrated on the currencies and on precious metals, and I think
And
it's
now
really.
there. Oh, I
No,
was
go
just
ahead,
gonna
go
say,
ahead.
all this stuff is that's just the currency stuff, but there's other things that are dependent upon our currency, and that's our goods and our services and our stock market, right? So, and as a result of the sudden changes, the stock market experiences a sharp decline, which not surprised right now. If you look at the stock market right now, we're riding all-time highs. Investors are certain about the value of the currency and the future of the economy rush to sell off their stocks. Surprising? No. The novel describes scenes of financial panic with the stock market collapsing as people lose confidence in the economic system. This mirrors real world instances where changes to monetary policy, especially involving gold or silver standards, have triggered panic in selling in markets. Right? So all this stuff is now you're talking about the haves and the have-nots, right? Because all the haves are heavily invested in stock market. The have-nots, they're invested in assets. They're invested in physical things or things that are tangible because they either don't understand the stock markets or they didn't have any access because they're not an accredited investor, right? Because only accredited investors get access to the good stuff to invest in, which a lot of these things are usually depend a lot of those good opportunities usually depend on you being an accredited investor, which means you have a net worth of like $1 million or more, and that's not including your homestead. So class conflict, economic division, right? So the executive order deepens the divide between the wealthy elite and the working class, the upper class, whose wealth is heavily tied to stock market and banking systems. I just said that suffers substantial losses as a result of the market crash. Meanwhile, the president's populist supporters, who may have fewer direct ties to stock investments, see the changes as a necessary correction to a system that previously benefited only the rich. This class conflict is a recurring theme in the novel with the financial upheaval intensifying social tensions. So, we already have lost confidence in our government. We're losing, most of us, I think, have lost confidence in the banks. Um, and the only thing that we have left to really gain confidence in at this point, B, and this is for all the audiences out there, is like B was saying, was your neighbor. And your neighbor is also yourself, right? Because you we talk about building community all the time, and we think that building community is involving politicians, but then we treat our neighbors like shit. And we bicker on differing opinions or differences in perspectives, and but yet we're community builders and we want to build a tighter, stronger community. It's like, bro, but you're arguing with me about semantics on some other motherfucker that we don't even see or we don't even talk to ever. I see you every day, and here you are giving me shit about something else that someone else is talking about. But we want to build a community? Like, I don't understand. Like, this is a part where, like, I hear what people are saying, but I don't think people are listening to themselves. I don't think people are looking at themselves and saying, oh, maybe I am part of the problem. Maybe I'm just a fucking stubborn donkey ass, and maybe I need to shut up sometimes and just listen. And maybe hear other people's perspectives on things and not offer a response, because sometimes some things don't require a response. Sometimes people just need to listen, because sometimes your response is going to trigger something ignorant out of somebody else. And if you know better, if you're an intellectual and if you're a smart person that has read, the dumbest thing you could do is engage into conflict or engage into an argument or engage into a conversation. There's a saying that goes, you cannot talk reason with unreasonable people, right? So if you see that people are being unreasonable, like, don't don't engage in that. Like, this is a part where you have to use your discernment, your intuition. Like, yes, like, speak your truth, but also it's not about being combative with people, because you cannot build a community with people that you're fighting all the time. I saw this meme yesterday that was it was Keanu Reeves, and it said, I'm at a point in my life where if you where I'm at a point in my life where if you tell me 1 + 1 = 5, I will say, yep, that's exactly right. Keep it trucking. I'm not gonna fucking argue with you that 1 + 1 = 5. I refuse, because there's no I'm not gonna reason with you, you know. And
Yeah.
so with that, like the community that we need to build isn't in ballots, it's not in voting, it's with our neighbors, it's with ourselves, it's with our families. Everything that's been broken, everything that's been taken away from us, everything that we've been designed to push away is the things that we need to be able to overcome whatever it is that this book is telling us is coming.
Yeah. Well, I
So
mean, we need to embrace the uncomfortability, because there's a lot of uncomfortable things that are fixing to come, and that's part of the reason why we're doing this, and especially this episode in general is highlighting, like, hey, this stuff is gonna come, like, whether we want it or not, and it's better to rip the band-aid off and just face it. We got to face it. And I was talking a little bit about the one world government type of shit, and how, oh, that should, like, align with the oneness of spirituality, but it's like, no, like, we need to decentralize the government and centralize our oneness with each other. Like, if we centralize power in one place, it's only going to lead to more decentralization of us as people. It's going to
yep,
lead to more like of the same, and actually more um, authoritarianism, more top-down control, and that's we need to decentralize power
right,
and
right,
spread it amongst us and reclaim our power as people, as individuals. And we do that by decentralizing, by building, like you said, building communities, right? Community, it starts at the community level. Like, that's how we fight the powers that be, who are trying to centralize power into one place and use it, and then shut people out who are against it, or worse, kill them. That's what the result will be, in
right,
this order out of chaos. And we need to understand the chaos is coming so that we can
right.
play the chess game. We need to start playing chess and stop playing checkers, and understand that, like, these are scenarios that are coming, right?
So
um
I got into a little bit of a thought experiment when I read all this stuff, and I was like, and I thought to myself, like, okay, now let's just say that this scenario plays out, and I asked ChatGPT, I'm like, in a real life scenario, like what's described in Last President, where a government abruptly shifts from the gold standard or changes its monetary policy, causing a currency devaluation and stock market panic were to occur, what are the likely impacts that this would have? And um, so what was interesting was that we have something that we call the quantum financial system. For those of you that are in the tinfoil hat communities and the conspiracy communities, we're all waiting for this magical thing called the quantum financial system to be implemented, where all debts will be eliminated. We're gonna have a jubilee year. Monetary system changes. Everything goes to a gold and silver standard, and like this book, if I were to describe what the quantum financial system were to be um, broken down into, I think that this book gives us the recipe for the quantum financial system. Because if this were to carry out, this would actually create an increased demand for cryptocurrencies, right? Because of all the things we just talked about,
Yeah.
the inflating of the currency, the lack of accounting and accountability, the lack of transparency. So cryptocurrencies are an ideal a tool for all this stuff. It would make Bitcoin a safe haven, right? Because we know that there's only 21 million Bitcoins. They can't make any more, can't magically print more into existence. Um, and a flight to decentralized finance, right? Because right now we're dealing with centralized finance. We're dealing with banking institutions. They're the ones that control all the money stuff. No need for those people anymore. We know that they're just crooks. They're just middlemen, intermediaries that are just taking fractions of our money for them doing exactly what we could do on our own with smart contracts. So
Well,
we have no need.
let's so a lot of people might look at crypto and be like, well, you guys are talking about how the paper dollar is not worth anything, but how can we define value out of crypto? And the answer to that is like you need to understand blockchain a little bit more extensively. You need to look into like this what it does is it creates a record, right? It creates a record on a ledger. And what that means is like you have the information that's stored on electronically, right? So you have a record that Joe owns this, right? So that we can go onto the electronic ledger and find how many Bitcoin Joe owns. So if there's a digital imprint, and it can't be destroyed, right? Like this is and unless there's some kind of like fucking solar flare that knocks out all of our technology, God forbid. But like the reason why crypto is a viable alternative, right, is because there is a record of the value. Like we can say there is a electronic record
And you
which
could
is
follow it.
gone. We don't have that with our currency currently anymore because we took it off of a gold standard. We took the value away from what the currency is supposed to be set on, right? And where the cryptocurrency comes in is it establishes value and it establishes a record, like a quantifiable record of the
Yeah,
currency. Correct?
yeah, yeah, absolutely does. And it gives it a record. It gives it a record of its provenance, means when it's originating. When, like, one of the things that was really important about crypto and about blockchain was the moment that they added a timestamp server. The moment that they added a timestamp server, it gave crypto, it gave money physics, because it gave it a time and a place and an existence in a location. And that is what was lacking in our monetary system, was the physics of it. And so now we're able to pinpoint exactly when and where and how a transaction happened. And that is the record that we need. We need to know, when did this occur, to be able to say, yes, it either did happen or it didn't happen. Because in real life, this is where the double spend thing happens, right? One of the things that Bitcoin was able to bypass was a double spend thing, by with its UTXO. So you can't spend more Bitcoins than you actually own. And um, a lot of the digital records that we have, the computer systems that we have, and I was having this conversation earlier with the gentleman from the Government Blockchain Association, was, you know, all of our systems were made to be broken. Like, they weren't made to be safe. They were, if you talk about IBM and Microsoft and all these big companies, a lot of the, first of all, Microsoft was built on the stack of IBM, and IBM, I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, was Bill Gates's parents, or one of his parents was at IBM. And so Microsoft was then built, and Microsoft got government contracts, and they built things for the government, not to be safe, but to be accounted for, right? They built things to be accounted for. So now, as time evolved, and you got things into like McAfee, or Norton antivirus, and all these things, all of those were programs and softwares that were designed to plug you directly into the CIA mainframe, so that if they needed to go and check on your computer, they could. They didn't need to ask your permission anymore. When you talk about computers and the way that they access the internet, a lot of people don't know, but if you're not aware, your computer has something called ports, very much like a seaport, like where your goods and services come in for your country, whatever you're watching this, like your computer has ports. And those ports you don't have just one or two, you have thousands of ports on every device. And if you don't have those ports closed off or defined, where like what information's coming in and out of those, you're vulnerable to attack, period. So, like, a lot of the security systems that we have in place, they weren't designed to protect you fully. They were made to mitigate the risk exposure, but they weren't intended to stop it. You can't stop it because the systems are faulty from the get-go. So, um, so all these things, like, this goes back to having to have a re hardwiring understanding of the technology that we have that exists. People think that, oh, like, because you have this virus scanning technology, that you're impervious to getting a virus or to being hacked. Like, no, they're just a different side or a different perspective of the same problem. While you may have insider or vision into one problem, you're losing insider perspective into another, because now you just gave that system access to your whole network, and now they can see what you're trying to protect, but no one else can. So it's like you're always giving up something for something else. There's always a sacrifice until you take control of your own data, of your own information, until you start learning these things for your very self. Like, you're gonna have to rely on people like me that actually you're trying to protect you from the bad guys, because I'm trying to protect myself. And so in doing so, I'm gonna, by definition, protect those I love. And so I love all of you. I love you, B. And so, so long as we all agree to work as a community, like, we're gonna get through this together. That's why we're doing this, everybody. You know?
And
Um,
the whole theme about this is like this whole podcast through all these episodes, we're on episode 8 now, is telling you there is a shift coming. There is a shift coming in society, and it was accelerated during COVID, but because of, we've talked about the planets and the astrology of all of it, and we're in cycles, right? This is a big system of cycles and circles going in circles and cycles. And this is just, once you plug in and you come to the realization of what we're actually a part of here in this construct, this reality that we are a part of. It is a system of circles and cycles, and you become aware that there's we're coming to the end of a cycle, right? And it's been pointed to in all these different cultures, and we've detailed this in ad nauseum in these episodes. If you guys have been following along, if you haven't been, go back and watch all the episodes and bring yourself up to speed on what we've been telling you, the information we've been presenting to you. This is going to happen. This is where we're at. We're going to shift. And to conclude with the book and the conversation you had with ChatGPT about it, it says, if such a drastic financial upheaval were to happen, it could accelerate a broader paradigm shift in how people view money and store wealth. Cryptocurrencies could evolve from being speculative assets into a core part of the global financial system. This would fundamentally change the relationship between governments, currencies, and individuals, potentially leading to a more decentralized, the key word, we were talking about decentralization, a more decentralized and democratized financial world. In conclusion, a crisis involving currency devaluation and stock market panic, as depicted in The Last President, would likely cause a surge in demand for cryptocurrencies as a hedge against inflation and financial instability. While there would be significant short-term volatility, the long-term effect might be an accelerated shift towards decentralized finance, increased global adoption of crypto, and possible government responses like the introduction of CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, or increased regulation. So
Remember, you saw it here first, folks.
yeah, this is at the heart of what Alex's work is trying to do. This is the point of this podcast, was to introduce you to Alex's system, introduce you to alchemy, introduce you to spirituality, how it all comes together in this nice little puzzle that we're creating for you, right? We're baking bread for you and giving you bread. We're taking all these breadcrumbs from all these different seemingly unrelated topics, right? And we're showing you how it all correlates and comes together, right? We're in a spiritual shift, but it also translates into an economic shift, a social shift, a cultural shift. Like all these things are happening in humanity. And
Right.
we're at this pivotal point in human history where the veil is being lifted, right? Oh shit, with the veil that on our consciousness is being lifted, and we're realizing we're all one. And we're realizing that all these different cultures in the past were connected to this eternal truth that we are all one, and that God is the puppet behind all the strings, right? He's the one, the Brahman is playing all parts. This is all inclusive into what's happening in humanity right now. And this is the key to understanding the shift in consciousness, where we're going in the future. Alex's work with crypto, like all these different things, like the rug is about to be pulled out from under humanity. And it has to happen. And this is why I said I would rather see Trump win, because Trump is more likely to be this guy in the book, right? And bring in these sweeping changes.
Yeah.
And,
I
and
can't see Camel Toe being this person in his book.
well,
Hell no.
Kamala is a puppet of the system, right? Kamala. This is why I talked about the neocon war hawks that are endorsing Kamala, which is strange bedfellows, right? Why would these neocon war hawk conservatives back a far left presidential candidate? It's because they are part of this system of polarization, right? It's why Trump has been attacked so hard, because he's an outsider. And I'm not saying that Trump is a savior. I'm not saying any of that shit, because I don't 100% trust the guy. I think it's possible he's in on it, right? But what
It's all part
he
of the plan. It's all part of
what
the plan.
what he represents to me is somebody that can strike and crash the fucking system so that it opens up an opportunity for all of us to grab the bull by the horns and take it out of the china shop, right? And really like reclaim our power, right? Because that's what we need. We need a huge shift in social, cultural, economic policy and norms, right? We need to have this huge it coincides with this spiritual astrological shift that is happening in this cycle. So that's why I say I think Trump's going to win. I might be wrong. Who knows? We'll see in a week or whatever, however long it is. But because he is the right person at this time to be the guy that can enact the changes that we need in order to create our own order out of the chaos, and not the same old shit.
That's
We've
right.
been stuck in the same old shit for thousands of years, and it's time enough is enough. It's time for the change. It's time for a change, to quote the great Owen Hart. um it's just, there's so much going on, you guys, and we're trying to make sense of all of it. Like I said, we're grabbing all these different breadcrumbs from these different places that don't seem to correlate, but they do. It's like that Charlie meme from Always Sunny, where he's got the charts and they all point to different things, and I probably seem like Charlie right now. But it's like it all correlates. There is a correlation, and this stuff that we talked about today is all coming, and it's really important to prepare yourself and have the courage, like we have, me and Alex have right now, to stand in front of it and be like, yes, we're going to take this challenge, and we're going to help usher humanity into this new paradigm, because that's what we need. It's the birth pangs of the new world, and we can either
Right.
have a new world that's a lot like the old world, and allow the people that are enacting this chaos to take control, like they and enact their fucking war gamed policies like they try to do during COVID, or we can stand up and say, you know what, we're taking our power back as a species, and we're going to guide this shift. But we
Yeah.
need you guys to educate yourselves on all the things we talk about, educate your and come to that spot inside within yourself and realize the oneness. See your neighbor as yourself. Stop falling for the okey doke. Stop falling for the shiny things. Stop falling for the ideological traps, and realize that this is truth.
And
And
I
we're
can't
just
I
trying.
can't
Go ahead.
oh I was just saying I can't remember if I was telling this to you on air or off air beforehand, but when it comes to having your direction and stuff, having plan A through Z is good, but like in my case, I understand the mission, and it is such a big mission. And I'm not saying that that any mission is what I'm saying is like everyone's mission is important because everyone's mission is part of the whole. And so what I mean by that is, don't let people derail you from your mission, whatever that is. If you know, like deep inside you, like you're living your path, you're living your purpose, only you know this, right? And I say this because I was asked, by my own family, like, what happens if you don't succeed? What happens? What's your plan B? And I was telling B earlier, um, ironically, I was telling B, my plan B is to make plan A work, only because I know my purpose. I know why I'm here. I know why B and I are doing this for you and for everyone watching this. Like we understand our purpose in doing this, and that's why we continue to do this, and we will continue to try and get more deeper spiritual insights on things that are happening in our realities and our real lives every single day, because we have challenges that we have to overcome. They're maybe not be identical to yours, but similar in a sense. They're hurdles that we have to overcome. And and it's funny, like you said, I forget who you said, but order out of chaos. Um, this is actually one of the deep insights, one of the revelations that I got out of my own research was all of existence is chaos. And for those that can create the rules, the order out of this chaotic realm that we live in, that's where the value comes out because you're creating systems. The order is the system. The order is the process. The order is it's it's the thing that everyone's all over the place, but when it comes to that one thing, everyone knows exactly what they have to do to get from the entrance to the exit. So we're back now for the third segment, and as I was saying before we got rudely cut off, was that the order out of the chaos is the system, right? So creating these rules, creating these plans creates the value for us, um and I know that we're getting pretty long into this podcast. It's one of the probably the longer ones that we'll end up doing, but it's super important that we get this information out to you. We're on the 28th of October now. Elections are I think, just over a week away, maybe a week away,
Week from tomorrow.
a week from tomorrow. So, a lot's been going on over here on my end. If you're in the LA area, and you need to go from one place to another, and you have a large group of people, I now have a party bus service that I'm putting together. So, I'll be putting a commercial, not on this one, on this podcast, but I'll be making a commercial for the next one, hopefully. I'll have the time to do it. But yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that I've been going on. I may be going out to Vegas in a couple of days as well. I've got a project I've got out there I'm working on. And a lot of this it's all interrelated. It's all related into the same stuff that we're talking about. It's all related into the big picture stuff that I'm doing with the platform and our system and new means of financial exchange. And also recently, I don't know if I mentioned this to you or not, B, but I don't even know if I mentioned this in the last podcast, but there is a pop-up special economic zone that was created off the island of Honduras, um, or off. I think it's a peninsula. I'm sorry, it's a peninsula, not an island. It's a peninsula off of Honduras. And what they did is they created this zone where, so kind of like the Catawba tribe, they created this special economic zone in North Carolina, South Carolina for digital assets. Well, that's because they wanted to circumvent the SEC and the financial regulatory body. We have another regulatory body that's called the FDA. And so, whenever we have supplements or things that we want to do as a species, human beings, to improve ourselves and improve our health, one of the things, and if you're in the health and wellness sector, you already know this stuff. But if you have products that actually works really well, the FDA won't approve it. And so, or there's a lot of red tape to getting it approved, and maybe a lot of fines or a lot of like fees or a lot of licensing and stuff like that. You gotta basically grease a lot of palms just to get shit moving, right? So they built this economic zone out of Roatan, Honduras, for companies focused in biotech engineering, things that are companies that are working on extending life capacity beyond 100 years. In their eyes, they believe, and I believe this too. I think that we're hitting the capacity now to never have to die if we don't want to. I'm not saying that it's going to be readily available to everybody, but the knowledge and the capacity to be there, I think we're really close. If we're not already there, we're really freaking close. Um, and so I had applied um, for a grant to go and experience this and participate in this new economic zone, this new ecosystem. And they got back to me a couple of days ago, and they basically asked me, when do I want to go? So Honduras is on the map for me. I'm looking at sometime in maybe in January to go out there. They have a summit. If you guys are interested in learning more about this, go to vitalia.city, VITALIA.city. And there, if if you're working in the biotech or in crypto or AI, there's a lot of growth opportunities for companies that want to set up out there. I am also involved in, not at the moment involved with stem cells directly, but uh, through proxy, I have one area of people that I'm working with stem cells here in the States, for specifically for chronic wound care. So if you have chronic wounds, if you have wounds that have been open for more than 3 months, and they're like pussy or like fluids coming out and stuff like that, like you can't get it closed for whatever reason. A lot of diabetics suffer from this stuff. Do reach out to me, and I'll provide you with some information as how you can get access to some of these stem cell patches that will seal you up and give you better quality of life. And so in the States, if you try and get stem cell therapy, you cannot get direct injection into any part of your body because, unfortunately, well, for as far as our government goes, unfortunately, it works too well. So that's why one of the things that I'm also working on right now is I'm working with another group of people that I'm gonna have a call with maybe tomorrow. I was supposed to have one today. Unfortunately, one of the guys had a really tragic accident over the weekend. I don't even really want to say because I don't, it's not, it's just really a loss of someone in their family very close to them. And so we were supposed to have a call this morning. And of course, this is how the devil works when you're supposed to be doing really big things, like tragedies or travesties will happen. I'm not saying that this is in any way, shape, or related to what we're going to talk about, but I can only help but think that, some of the things that we're talking about are so impactful that we do have these negative entities after us trying to bring harm our way. And we do have to account for these things because the stuff that we're talking about, that I'm about to have this conversation with this gentleman, is to bring the capacity to actually inject stem cells directly into the bloodstream, into the infected areas of human beings, so that we can actually help heal and rejuvenate people instead of just putting patches on people. But to do that stuff, you're going to have to go fly to Honduras, maybe go to one of the clinics, go through a whole series of like, checkups and all that stuff. The point is, like, we're going to have options. Maybe not in the States, but we're going to have options to extend the capacity to live longer, healthier, more productive lives. And unfortunately, like this government isn't very friendly to life. They're not very pro-life, as much as we may think they may be. And so we have to take drastic alternative actions. And this is why I say, when people ask me what's plan B, to make plan A work, because this is worth fighting for. It's worth putting my life at risk to help people like you. It's worth putting my life at risk to help my friends, my family, and my loved ones. And, you know, um, I want to leave a legacy. I want to have a family. I want to be able to like create a better world. I don't have kids yet. Um, I was gonna have one. I lost one, unfortunately, but in a way, I'm a bit grateful that at the time I didn't bring them into this world or into this world because it's a little messed up. I feel like we're really close to a pivotal change um, where I think that I'll feel comfortable bringing another life into this planet, and maybe others will too. Maybe others will change their minds about procreating because I know a lot of people that I know that don't have kids or don't want kids. A lot of it has to do with the fact that they think they're like, this world's a fucked up place. Like, I don't want to bring kids into this world, and I don't blame them. I don't blame them not one bit. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's my
So,
rant
I
right
mean,
now.
yeah, to sum it up, like that kind of puts a little bow on the end of it. It's like this is why we're doing what we're doing. Alex is involved in a lot of groundbreaking stuff, and if we can get past this election and really kind of set our sights towards the future and have the courage to look at the monolith and be like, you know what, we can tackle it, we can do it, we can. And there's enough going on in the world and enough people that are on our wavelength trying to push towards a better future that we don't have to worry about these old fuckers that we've been talking about the whole podcast run that have been running things that we're trying to get rid of. Like it's time to get rid of them. They can go, and you know,
Don't let electile dysfunction affect you.
and yeah, it's plan A. Let's make plan A work. Let's burn all the boats and focus our attention and our intention on making
Ooh, I
this
like
place
that.
better and
I like
making not just America but the world great again. And we can. And whether Donald Trump or Kamala Harris wins, ultimately, I feel it's kind of inconsequential if we just come to a place within ourselves where we're like, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're going to change this place. And if anyone stands in our way, they're part of the people we're getting out of there, right? It's
part of
like
the problem.
grab
Yep.
grab the sword. Let's go into this cave and slay this dragon and make humanity a better world for the future. So I think that's a good place to end it off.
Yeah, because I got choppers flying overhead now out of nowhere all of a sudden.
Yeah, you're
Chopper
talking.
confirmation. Chopper
Yeah,
confirmation.
helicopter confirmation. All right, guys, thanks for joining us once again. We will be back very soon with episode 9, but I hope you guys enjoyed this episode and all the episodes, right? Like go back. If this is the first one you're finding, go back, watch the other ones. Get on the same page with us so we can push forward. Burn
I'm not
those
gonna lie
fucking
though. I'm not gonna lie though, they have been progressively getting better. So if you're catching this at the tail end, like I think when we first got started, we were kind of like, grappling for something there. But I think we're falling more into what we were brought here to do for you. So, but definitely do give it a shout out, and give it a chance. I think there's a lot of value in the early ones that we did. And it'll help piece together, I think, our why. I think maybe that's a good way of putting it. I think this is the earlier ones will put together the why we're doing this better.
absolutely. Well, that's all, folks. Until next time, I'm B.
I'm A, and we love you.
We are the Quantum Alchemists. We love you. Bye.
Peace.